It's a lovely color, but can you imagine how much better this would look on your body? But
Yeah.
do you know what the dolphin was doing? It was eating the fish people were reeling in.
There's whole areas of downtown that were just occupied by homeless people, and they were just sleeping on sidewalks. And do you have any idea kind of what happened in that decade?
And people themselves are getting more radicalized because of social media. And this is where my nonprofit comes into play, the Periphery Foundation.
So the buildings were still smoldering. I mean, it looked like smoke is just like it's still. What did it smell like?
Oh man.
What up, bud? How you doing?
Good, cool shirt.
Thanks.
Where'd you get it? Where'd you get that shirt?
I mean, if I'm wearing it, it's Target or it was free from somebody. So yeah, this is the Target special. So, yeah.
I was looking at shirts in my closet, and I was looking at buying something on Amazon, and I thought, it's an advantage to have darker skin. Yeah, this is how we're gonna start this podcast. It's an advantage to have darker skin when you wear like oranges and stuff. I never really thought about the impact of skin color on the clothes you wear.
Yeah.
But the more I look at it, like it's huge, right?
It also works reverse. I mean, if I just go into a bar at night and I'm wearing all like dark, I just kind of fade away. I used to have a friend who used to tell me, wear white, wear light colors, wear pink, because it pops, So even though I'm more comfortable in darker stuff, every now and then I'll put this on and like, hey, there we go.
I got a button shirt with that same color as those stripes.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks funny on me, It
does.
does.
It look funny? Does it look funny, or do you just think it looks funny because you don't usually wear those colors?
I should go grab it.
You should.
All right, hold on.
Go grab it, yeah.
All right. It's like salmon.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
And if it's like,
okay,
it's a lovely color, but can you imagine how much better this would look on your body?
I'm not gonna lie. Well, it's not the body. It's just your complexion's a little too. I mean, you start blushing, you disappear into the shirt. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, it just looks funny on the. I remember hearing a comic talk about that. It wasn't even a joke. It was just something he said in the off, like, yeah, I can't really wear pink and stuff, And he was talking about something else, but I was like, it's sometimes those off-handed comments that you hear the most because it's not the direct thing that they're telling you. It's just those aside, or like when you're a kid, you remember your parents talking, and it wasn't what they sat you down and looked in you in the eye and told you. It was something they talked about, maybe something they just mentioned, just kind of like, by the way, And then that was a thing that caught your eye. Something about that is actually a powerful way to like connect. You can't really manipulate it though, because or make it purposeful, because then you are looking them, it's like, how do you purposefully do something as an aside, right?
You
It's
by the
subliminal, I guess.
You kind of, and it depends on the person. I mean, the person's either open to kind of catching that minutia or they're not. So you kind of have to maybe just talk. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think you can purposely do it.
Those are like, maybe it's like God things, it's like it'll just connect with the person. You'll just say it without even it being your purpose or your plan and whatever. So it's not going to be what we talk about with the shirts and skin color that'll get people's attention here. It'll be something like here.
Yeah.
That's something we just mention, an OKC basketball hoop in the background or whatever.
Well, we could kind of argue that the shirt stuff is the in-between stuff, Like
when
that's
we don't
not
talk
really,
about it.
Yeah, that's not really what we were planning on going to, but so anyway, yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of this forum, is it's open-ended and you can just talk, right? Okay, let me make a formal introduction, everybody. My name is Brandon Fertig. I'm with the Periphery. And my friend Paul, you may have seen him before. He was the co-creator of Bill number 3, Arkansas Bill number 3, where we drove from Paul's place in Oklahoma, looking at his basketball hoop there. And we went over to Arkansas, the state just east of Oklahoma. And Paul was the videographer for that video. Obviously, I was the one on camera, so I wasn't the one shooting it this time. Paul was the guy. In fact, at the end of the video, you see a picture of Paul shaking
Yeah.
hands with Bill. So Paul has a starring role too. And now he especially has a starring role, not just on camera, but as like the producer and the creator of these podcasts. It was really his brainchild. He's like, Brandon, let's do a podcast where we can talk about the channel, just talk about things going on out there in the world, what's going on in our lives, our projects, our travels, whatnot. And then let's highlight a video that may have been lost, in the library of content we have on the periphery. Let's highlight something, bring it to the fore, and give it some attention it may not have gotten the first time around. So that's a great idea. I'm really excited about this. So let me actually introduce to you who don't know you, Paul. Let me introduce Paul to you viewers. And Paul, take it away. And thanks a lot, man, for an old time friend. We served together at a restaurant 10 years ago or whatever it was. It was a long time ago, pretty long time ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you recognize the bracelet here? Remember that?
did you wear that there?
Well, it was this is in my car and I just pulled it out about a week ago. It's the restaurant we used to work at. If you walked in with this bracelet, you got a free glass of wine. That was
I do remember that. I remember them being lavender, but I don't know.
No, here we go. This was it. I think it was the only kind they had. But anyway, maybe there were multiple. But anyway, I saw this the other day and I just
I do remember that promotion.
Yeah.
You got that. I probably still have my purple shirt somewhere. They had us wear purple button-ups at the lavender.
Yeah, from purple to salmon. Huh?
So I had no say over the clash there. It's your uniform, that and dark jeans. And if it wasn't dark enough, they tell you to buy new jeans.
Yeah.
I got told that a couple times.
You were a rebel. Yeah, I've never seen. I mean, I've seen you be a rebel, but you were purposely just kind of. You would mess with them on purpose.
Rebel is polite. I was just a bad worker. I was just a bad employee. How about that?
Maybe that too.
It wasn't my calling. This is more my style, and it's been great to have Paul along, like over the years, off and on. And now lately, we've really collaborated a lot more. We knew at the time that we had a lot in common. Paul's a writer, he's a songwriter, and a poet, and just creative. And so these things, just we had a lot to talk about back and forth, and we got pretty close at work there. And then Paul moved away, and I did some things and whatever. Now we're back together collaborating on this channel, and especially so for these podcasts. So I want to say a couple things about yourself, Paul, and then we'll rock and roll with the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of nailed it, kind of some of the main things. I'm a creative type. I've been a video editor for, I don't know, off and on for about 20 years, mainly working for local TV news stations, editing kind of marketing type stuff. But I've also written, done some camera work. And now for the past year or so, I've been doing kind of freelance videography. And yeah, and kind of Brandon said, we kind of, kind of got back in touch. And it was at a time when what I kind of do and what he does kind of intersect. So we just kind of started working together. And this is a way for us to kind of, basically, whenever we talk, our conversations go on for hours. We won't have these podcasts go as long as our conversations, but we kind of thought it'd be nice to just record our conversations and, kind of get to know each other while you get to know us along the way. So this is kind of the first effort in that. And I think, yeah, I mean, recently, Brandon, you were down in Florida, and we've kind of purposefully held off on catching up on that for this. So why don't you tell us about Florida? How's Florida?
Well, it was a reunion that brought me down there too. We talk about the reunion between you and I lately, but I went down to Florida to see, well, so I'm in Minnesota. Things here are pretty locked down. It's not like the South, Oklahoma, Florida, wherever, Mississippi, where things are a little bit more open. So I just was staring at a long winter in October. I was like, boy, it's going to be a long winter ahead in Minnesota. They're long anyway. They're very long anyway. But if restaurants won't be open or at full capacity, and if there will be virtually no salsa dancing, which is a hobby of mine, then which there hasn't been. I guess there's one place now that's open, and I'm surprised they're even allowed because people around here are pretty strict on this stuff. But I just I got to get away this winter, So I took a road trip to West Virginia, as people who watch this channel might know from that video with my reunion with Carrie, West Virginia Carrie. But I wanted to take a proper little trip, so I reached out to a couple Florida contacts, and one was an old buddy from college that I hadn't seen in 20 years, Roger. And this was more of like a vacation. I almost always, when I travel, take my camera and my tripod and my mic, and I interview people along the way. It's what I did in Alaska last August. But this time I was like, no, just take it easy. And I had to resist because I had a great time getting to Jacksonville. Obviously, it's much warmer, palm trees, tropical. I mean, I feel like I'm in another country in a way because it's just so tropical and warm, and the beaches, and it feels Caribbean to me, coming from the pine trees and deer of the Midwest. And Roger shows me around, like Jacksonville, southern. I drive up to southern Georgia, where a friend of mine lives. He's an older guy. He just lost his wife. So, I mean, connecting with him and catching up was impactful there. And that area of southern Georgia is a real diamond in the rough. People don't even know it exists, but it's a
What
very
city is
old, very old part of the country. St. Mary's is where he lived, and you got
Okay.
the coastal. It had that coastal, like, Main Street vibe where but like tourists, so ice cream shop, maybe it's spelt with two P's and an E at the end, like restaurants that had a patio that overlooked the ocean, or at least the channel that went out into the ocean. Ferries that were taking tourists out, but it was not very popular. It was cooler, and it was still some COVID concerns in the air, so there wasn't a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Super historic. I talked to some people on the dock there at St. Mary's, into that channel going into the ocean, and they were fishing for all kinds of things. And this is where I found a real opportunity for a video. And on day 2, I flew in on a Wednesday. On Thursday, I was driving up to St. Mary's, Georgia, talking to people on the dock up there, on this pier going out into this channel. And then there's Southern good old boys, big beer belly, hat, beer, just the accent, the whole thing. Great guys, talking all about life there. I'm like, man, this is golden. I got to be recording this, But I'm like, just enjoy it,
Yeah.
So I did that. I'd find throughout the time that there was lots of people like that to talk to. Not surprising. What did sort of strike me, though, is that I kept having these interactions on docks and piers, people fishing, and I realized this is a great opportunity for a video. So that's actually, planting the seed, Paul. I want to do a video of talking to fishermen, dockside fishermen and women all around the country, because fishing is a really good just activity and gateway to conversation.
Well, it's a passive activity where you're actively doing something, but passively doing something at the same time. You kind of have that space to feel.
And it's something, and people are doing something leisurely, and we all have our own styles. Oh, I'm getting this. It's a strategy. I'm going to do that. I'm using this bait, whatever. All the kinds of fish you can catch, especially down there. It's quite a variety in that brackish water. You can get freshwater and salt water. You can get everything from a catfish to a shark off the same pier.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really neat. And then they might ask you about fishing where you are. So, in Minnesota, we catch this and that. One guy said, oh yeah, those walleyes up in Minnesota, so it was great. And I did end up making one video over the weekend. I was in Florida from a Wednesday to a Wednesday. Over the weekend, I took a road trip with Roger to Tampa, across the state. And in Tampa, I was like, okay, I got to just record this, because, Roger and I were walking along, just enjoying this Fort DeSoto State Park. So it's about the fort. It's about, some of the food there, the beach, obviously. But I'm like, just give me 20 minutes, Roger. I just got to do this thing. I'm like an addict. Like, give me I got to go and do this, a gambling addict or something. Let me go into the casino, just a few bets. But people were catching all kinds of fish. And there was these birds, these very large birds, like these stork crane-like birds, were walking along the dock, and very tame, and they were very large. So to see a bird that big up close was cool.
Yeah. Wait, how big? How big would you say? Like
3 feet, 3 feet
3
tall.
feet? Okay.
Yeah, big animal. And those birds have that look in there. They just sort of look at you with their beak, like this. It's kind of like a dinosaur, a little velociraptor looking at you. It's yeah, they always give like the evil eye. I don't know. so that was novel. That was kind of neat to see. And then all the kids were around and they love to talk about fishing, and no one was camera shy.
Mhm.
I think that's the thing too about people in the South. They tend to be a bit more gregarious and open than say up here in Minnesota. Um,
Definitely, yeah.
and oh, and there was a dolphin. There was a dolphin, which to me was like,
Did you
oh my
catch it?
gosh. No, but
No.
you know what the dolphin was doing? It was eating the fish people were reeling in.
Oh, wow. And it was,
Yeah.
I guess it was getting it, the hook wasn't, it was just kind of going through everything.
Yeah. Well, the fish, of course, the dolphin, I mean, I don't know how smart it is to know this,
Yeah.
but it's fortunate to be doing this because it's pretty effective. Because if you catch a fish, only the tip of its body, its mouth is going to be hooked.
That's
So
right.
if the dolphin just bites anything behind the very top of the head, then it's going to get the whole thing. And it's pretty vicious, I think, in how it grabs it. So it just rips it right off the hook. And the guy will just feel like a huge pull and then it's gone. And then you'll see a dolphin swimming. And it's like, oh, so they hated that dolphin.
Flipper's getting lunch, getting
They
fed.
didn't like the dolphin. They were trying to like if they had a fish on, they'd look around for the dolphin, making sure it isn't going to take their lunch.
That's pretty awesome, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Like to me, that was gold, and to them, it was annoying. But that's also in itself gold because then
Mhm.
you see the difference in lifestyles very apparent right there.
Now, was
And
for them, are these people, were they fishing for pleasure or for dinner?
um, dinner, they were going for mackerel, Spanish mackerel, and others would keep other fish too. And there was a real diverse group.
Mhm.
That's the thing too. Fishing is so universal that, and
Yeah.
America is a diverse place. So if you go to any large town, especially Tampa, you know there were Asian, maybe Vietnamese, um, and then of course the local white and black populations and some Latino, I think. So you just get a whole rainbow of people doing it too, and that's always good for conversation. The one guy didn't speak any English, so he just laugh and nod, and that's when you know that he's like, "Stop recording, get out of here," without
Yeah.
saying it. Um, but he got a bunch of tiny little fish, and I thought, boy, that's not going to be much, but um, enough for them. They were happy. They had like a whole bucket full of them. Um, the big birds, like the pelicans, would go in, and the cormorants would scoop up the bait fish that were all on the other on one side of the dock, and
Yeah.
the people would actually fish for the bait on one side of the dock, and then fish for the mackerel on the other side of the dock.
It was that
The
distinct
bait
of
the bait fish were all in a swarm right off the end. It's all in the video. We should. It's
yeah,
it's it's the latest video on the Periphery. So if you're watching this and are
okay.
curious, just go to the Periphery YouTube, which is what
Okay.
you're watching this on right now, and I guess it'll be the next video after this one or something.
It's that's kind
Very
of
recent video.
it feels kind of like, can't the fish just cut out the middleman and just the bigger fish and just go under the dock and
That's what I
eat?
said. I said, why are they even biting on your line? Because they have all this bait right here.
Yeah, it's
Like they
there.
have all this free food, and they just said, well, they didn't know, but they would keep reeling them in. Um, the bait fish were so abundant though that a guy had one of those nets with like weights on the ends of it. So when it goes in the water, it kind of cups, the
Yeah.
weights go down, and he brought up 50, 60 little fish about this size.
Wow.
And I'm like, is that all you did was just throw the net off the end of the dock and get all these fish? He's like, yep. I'm like, I was wondering where you guys got your bait. Bait's free.
There you
That
go.
was, that was the line.
Wow.
That was the line. So teeming with life is an accurate phrase one could say about that dock. So I just had to cap for that.
Yeah.
But no, it was great. I actually I found out my cousin and his wife and daughter were in Clearwater, which is next to Tampa, while I was there.
Okay.
So I stayed an extra day there to be with them, and then that was completely, totally proper vacation. Not even a conversation with the local. Well, there was one guy who had a metal detector on the beach, and I talked to him about things that he finds. I just couldn't. You can't. You can't turn that off.
Mhm.
But that was a day where I was sitting on the beach, swimming in the ocean, and
Yeah.
it was a real day of vacation there. And the rest of it was too. I just did a little more
See, people
exploring.
find whenever folks, I've had a problem with going to the beach and doing nothing. I don't
I
know
do
if
too.
I sit down and I'll have a book and I think in my head, I think this is going to be so relaxing. I'm just going to sit here and just feel the sun and smell the ocean air and just
Yeah.
watch people. And 30 minutes in, I'm just kind of, I
See,
gotta
that's why we're
do
friends.
something.
We can keep each other busy with conversation, and we'd
Yeah.
walk around the restaurant together before the show started and just talk. Look for like, oh, there's a silverware out of place. Okay, let's do that. So we look busy
Yeah.
while talking. Um,
Just
I'm
talking.
the same way. And I asked my cousin that. I'm like, what do you guys do? He's like, oh, we just, sit on the beach and sit on the beach. I often wonder what people do on the beach too, because I many times I've been on the beach. Okay. It's like I'm waiting for something. Okay, and
Yeah, I
go.
know.
What do you mean go, Brandon? You're here. This is it.
Mhm.
This is it. Yeah, it's great. Okay. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me too to relax.
There are kind of two different types of people, and that's a very distinct line between the people who can actually just relaxing is fun, and where being occupied is fun, or being active is fun. And I think people
Yeah.
are more active.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to just chill. I actually envy that, whether it's someone's laying on their stomach tanning or whether it is reading a book. Um, that's actually a goal of mine, is to be able to relax more. That's
Mhm.
kind of might sound strange. Like I need to be better at being lazy or something like
I
that.
don't
It
think
seems kind of counterintuitive, but
it's good to rest to
mhm.
recover, but I just don't think people who like to be active find we just I don't find joy in doing nothing. I mean, the best I can do is find a TV show that I binge,
Yeah.
that I'm really into, and I want to know. But then, even at that point, there's a couple after a few hours, I gotta just do something. But anyway, well, so okay, so people wise, did you meet any? Just, I mean, you kind of met people along the way, but was there any sort of deeper, not deeper, but did you meet someone that you actually had some good, real conversation with that wasn't in passing?
Um, well, I got to know, yeah, I mean, so Roger had a friend, this older guy who married this, I don't want to get this wrong, she'll get offended, because there's a big difference between Bosnian, Serbian,
Oh yeah.
that area of the world, the old Yugoslavia. But I think she was Bosnian. And so we went on this boat tour around St. Augustine, which is the oldest uh, colony in the country, by the way. It's older than Plymouth Rock and all the stuff in the Northeast. It's like the old original Spanish. So it looks like a colonial, like a Antigua Guatemala or something. It has that same kind of old Spanish
Mhm.
uh, feel.
The oldest non-native colony, as we'd say. Or actually a
That's
colony.
right. Well, it's a colony. So
Colony,
yeah,
never
it's
mind.
the oldest colony
Right.
city started, yes, and it was by the Spanish, and it was in the 1500s. So this predates the Pilgrims by a good 100 years,
Wow.
or maybe
Wait,
75 or
yeah.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and we were taking a sunset boat ride, just a real touristy thing, going around and then pointing out the thing. There's the oldest church. There's a big old cross. There's this old bridge with two lions at the head of it to like signify something or another. I don't know, touristy stuff.
Mhm.
And that's where I met Roger's friend. He's in IT, and he married this Bosnian woman. And then she, before we had said goodbye that night, talked to me a little bit about the war there and how she had I think a brother who served in that war, and then a sister who actually lost her life
Yeah.
in that
Sorry,
war.
this is the complete wrong time for me to be smiling, but I hear the vacuum in the background.
I was
Like
wondering
it's
about that.
attacking, like it's
It's
just,
actually not a you know what they're doing? They're painting the walls, and so they're grinding what they've chipped away. I was wondering if you were hearing that. That's too bad. But
well, I mean, it's fine
you know
because
what? That's life. That's podcast.
that's
That's live
life.
streaming, whatever.
The timing
So
of hearing it in the story was unfortunately at the wrong time, but
think of it as like a tense C or D or F note just in the background there, like hanging on one extended note for dramatic
okay.
effect.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, let's read back at you take off where I interrupted you. That was a poorly timed.
well,
Yeah.
well, uh, now we can blame the painter for that one.
It is
Want
their
me to go out
fault.
there and berate him? Sure.
That was
Think of it as the dentist. I don't know. No, she just told me about, because she had a thick accent. She had gotten to the U.S. maybe in the last 20 years,
yeah.
and she was in her 50s. She had grown kids, so she had a lot to talk about there, and she almost started to like get a little you know, because her sister died a couple decades ago, I think, and so that would have been up that, you know, powerful connection.
Yeah.
Plus my friend in St. Mary's who just lost his wife, and there are probably some others too. But yeah, you know, one thing at the beach that I saw, to completely go back to that,
Mhm.
I noticed two girls, uh, like doing you can tell it's the Instagram generation,
Mhm.
because it was two young women in swimsuits and they kept just posing for pictures. And it wasn't like normal, like cheese and cheesy stuff, you know, on the beach. It was like, I'm gonna, I'm gonna stick my butt out
Mhm.
really far, and I want you to take a picture of just my butt. And so her friend had the camera right up to her butt, like just
Yeah.
her butt.
Uh-huh.
And then she's like kneeling in the water and looking back. And these are young, these are like high school girls doing this
Oh
stuff.
man.
And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to look like a pervert watching these two girls, but this is a telltale sign of the year 2021, right? Or
Mhm.
at least
This
modern
era.
times,
Yeah.
where I don't think I ever would have saw that. I mean, one, the phone technology to take pictures, but I think it's the Instagram thing. I think it's the whole, just I want others to really, um, um, you know, like and share and compliment me on these photos. I want to,
Mhm.
you know, want to be a star. Um,
It's different. It's almost like we're kind of recreating life instead of just doing life and capturing it. It's almost like a lot of our lives now are just kind of for something else instead of just being
yeah,
a moment. But
yeah. No, there is that layer between you and authentic existence,
mhm.
and I do that too. I mean, I have the same problem. I'm not posing for Instagram photos, but I'm, you know, I'm putting this in front of me in the world, right?
Yeah.
So it was refreshing on this trip to only at one time have this out
Mhm.
for to capture the scene on that dock. Besides that, I just talked to the Bosnian woman. I just talked to the fisherman at St. Mary's,
Yeah.
and yeah, I rely on this too much. It's a profession, but it's like being a painter and walking into a house and not noticing the walls. You know, it's hard to turn that off, but um, yeah, both from a professional angle and the fact that, yeah, we live in a time where our lives are poured into the social media realm, and so it's hard to disconnect from that. It's why
It's
the silent retreat I did in January was so
oh
powerful.
yeah.
I'll just I won't I went on a 3-day, no talking, no electronics
Okay,
silent retreat.
we are gonna because we talked about it some just in a previous conversation, but I want to get more into what a normal day look like. Not now, but in the next week, whenever we have our
Okay.
next podcast,
Yep.
we're gonna
Teaser.
dive into that because I want to know more about what. Yeah, there you go. What it
Up
was
the viewer.
like.
Yeah.
Now there wasn't like you're silent there, but you're not sworn to silence outside. Is it? It's not like not like the secrets of a fraternity or a cult or anything. Right?
Nope. Nope. Happy to talk all about it.
Okay. Okay.
Which there's kind of an irony in that, but uh,
Yeah.
I do. Something I realized there, though, very, very powerful truth about life is I realize life is meant to be discovered, not explained. And maybe that'll be sort of what we end this teaser with. But the idea of like trying to explain this thing to people,
Mhm.
it's hard to do. You can only give them just like, you know, a general idea, but to go there and realize the benefits, that's what's gonna
Mhm.
keep you coming back. And yeah, life is meant to be discovered. It's we can't explain why one should do all the things uh, that would benefit them. It has to be learned along the way. And
Mhm.
anyway, that's kind of a general idea that struck me while there. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm happy to talk all about it though next time we do one of these.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's move on to kind of just what's kind of going on in the world right now that's kind of got your attention. What's something that yeah you just want to talk about now?
Oh, let's see. I mean, I'm a big I I take a lot of interest in, there's some intellectual things and then there's some human interest things, right? So kind of the analytical, I don't know if that's at the left side of the brain. I don't know if that's even holds up to research, but it's that idea of more analytical thinking. Um, I think I have that right. The left side is more analytical, the right brain is more artistic. If I don't flip flop them and
Yeah,
whatever, one side is one side is the other. And I'm interested in how like technology affects the way society is going to proceed. And that gets relates to human interest, because if we have this technology and it makes society change, then that is going to change how people tell their stories and live their lives, right? It's going to it's going to alter the course of the human story. And I see a lot of change coming on the horizon that's going to alter it drastically, the human story, the human experience, because we're not able to organize and function as we once,
well, I
as,
mean,
as we think
I
we ought
feel
to be.
like you're talking about something specific, but you haven't mentioned the specific thing. You're kind of, do you mean to be general, and you're going towards something, or is there something in
Well,
particular that you're talking about?
these are general effects, like the way we structure our societies, right? The way we have elected government and police and media institutions and educational institutions, and we've got sort of these pillars and these ways of things operating, and we're used to all that. But the rise of the internet and the communication enhancement of social media and stuff is just sort of upending a lot of this,
Mhm.
and we're seeing the dysfunction happen because of this. So government's not as effective, law enforcement might not be as effective, and people themselves are getting more radicalized because of social media. And then that makes it so, especially in the US, where people are a bit radical anyway, more so, and definitely more diverse than many other countries, those different radical elements are just not able to be contained in one thing.
Mhm.
So I think we just see a general unraveling. Really, that's a scary word, but I think that's kind of what's happening in the country right now. um, that also provides a lot of opportunities, though, for ways to be of service. And this is where my nonprofit comes into play, the Periphery Foundation, where I've started taking money that the channel raises on some of my videos, especially the homelessness documentary featured on the channel, uh, and then using that money to help these causes, because I'm seeing the existing ways that we're trying to address homelessness not keep up with the problem, at least here in the Twin Cities.
Mhm.
So whether it's the existing shelter system or the county providing benefits, these kinds of existing structures that we've used for aid,
Mhm.
uh, social services, I'm seeing them continually falling behind in the needs, not just because the demand is more, but also because they seem to be struggling more with, I don't know, well, in this year, tax bases will be a lot less because of
Yeah.
COVID. So yeah, there's a lot of things happening to kind of break these systems down. And so a nonprofit like the Periphery Foundation might be able to swoop in and fill that void a little bit. Like, we don't have a lot of money, but to go in and offer services directly to people without saying, oh, well, this is a county's job, or we need to go through a shelter or a church. Well, no, why don't we just go and do it directly? We've got the money coming from the channel. We don't need to get a grant. Even if we get enough money from our videos and from donors, then we don't have to go through some gatekeeper
Yeah.
of grant givers. So there's a lot of power for direct giving, and I think that's just going to have to be leveraged more and more going into the future.
Let me ask you, because I mean, homelessness is kind of something that it's a recurring theme, it's a recurring cause for you, and it's
Yeah.
something that I lived in San Diego 2 different times. I lived there around 2004, and I think around 2014 or 15. So basically 10-year difference. And then '04, I don't remember. I mean, there were homeless people, but it was just kind of, it was, they were there, but it wasn't intrusive. It was just kind of, okay, big city, there's homeless people. It's a nice weather. I remember every now and I'd see a homeless person like on the beach laying on their bike. So I'm like, oh, that's so we can't get stolen. It was kind of like it was just like, oh, look, but then 10 years later, there's whole areas of downtown that were just occupied by homeless people, and they were just sleeping on sidewalks. And
Mhm.
it was just, it was so in your face at all times. And I wonder, do you have, I know that's a different city. a different part of the country, but do you have any idea kind of what happened in that decade? And I know LA is just crazy, and there's certain cities that are just really not even overrun, but just kind of it's a major problem.
Yeah.
What changed? Like what happened in society that because I think that there was just in those 10 years, there was a huge shift.
Well, I think there's been a general increase of homelessness over the decades,
Hmm.
really starting
Okay.
in the 70s.
Hmm.
So there's that. Because before the 70s, especially 60s and 50s and before, homelessness was largely the stereotype of the dude with the big red nose because he's an
Hmm.
alcoholic holding a stick in a bag.
Natural thing.
The
Under
hobo, the
the hobo,
hobo.
yeah.
There was even a kind of a romance to that culture, jump in boxcars, travel the country,
Hmm.
whatever. They almost always did enough work to get by. So they had some kind of um, incentive to do something because there wasn't the social services that there are now.
Yeah.
Um, but in the 70s, it changed. It went from just a largely adult male issue to now one affecting kids, women, everybody.
Hmm.
Uh, and there was a lot more drugs, whereas before it was mostly alcohol.
Yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't just hobos living in boxcars or living in little flop houses. It was actual like, no, I'm sleeping on the sidewalk.
Hmm.
So that really started to happen in the set. A lot happened in the country around then, to kind of break down communities.
Yeah.
And whether it was the war, whether it was outsourcing of jobs,
Mhm.
um, I think just mass media and people getting more mad about things and the radicalization of people. Um, drugs became more proliferated. There's a lot of things that happened during that time, and
Yeah.
and then things just sort of, I don't know, like the more tight knit communities you imagine in the 50s post-war, we're all more unified and just happy to be at peace. That all just sort of went away in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then the 70s saw some fallout, and it's been continuing that ever since. So there's a general increase in homelessness
Mhm.
first.
Yeah.
And then I think what you see is different places handling it differently. And the ones that
Yeah.
are generous with it, that are lenient with it, are seeing a huge influx of it.
Mhm.
And the places that are more hard about it, maybe mean, you would say,
Mhm.
are seeing people leave those areas. So you probably don't have a huge homelessness problem in Oklahoma City.
Well, remember because when you
Oh yeah,
visited,
there's a
we
few.
were downtown and there wasn't a problem necessarily downtown, visible problem in the main area of downtown. Not that it's a huge downtown, but it wasn't that visible. But then
Mhm.
found out later that yeah, it's just there's an area. It's just kind of they've been pushed into a different part
Yeah,
of
they're a little
town.
more, they're tougher. Let's just say
Yeah,
that they're tougher on homelessness in red states than
they're
blue states.
tougher.
That's no surprise.
They're tougher on where homelessness can be, I would say. And I don't know numbers are super detailed, but I just know that there is a homelessness. There are a lot of
Mhm.
homeless here. They're just not where where they are is kind of more controlled. I'd say.
Right.
Yeah.
Places like California are, they're open. Places like Seattle are very progressive. Vancouver, oh my gosh, they'll have places where you can go and they'll work with you. They'll like literally watch you shoot up and make sure that you do it safely. So
Yeah.
they keep going down that road where it's like, well, we better give out free needles so they don't spread diseases. Okay, we give out free needles. Well, they still might overdose, so we better have a place they can come to and make sure that they have a clean needle, and then we can like watch them. And so they'll have a nurse watch them as they shoot up. I mean, they're like, oh, but no one's overdosing. Yeah, but you got a ton of addicts now, right?
Mhm.
So, and they are overdosing because they'll just get high when they don't go to
Right.
that place, or they'll take fentanyl, which is a killer. So yeah, these places that have been more lenient and taken that approach have seen their numbers go up a lot.
Yeah. Well,
West Coast cities especially.
I think I think that on the next time we do this, we've kind of got I want to get deeper into that aspect of it, the kind of drug side of homelessness from what you've
Okay.
seen. We can get deeper into that because I don't know, I've kind of thoughts on drug legalization. And I've just kind of been
Hmm.
mulling that idea over for, I don't know, since I was in college. I had a professor kind of
Hmm.
throw that out there back in the 90s, and I thought it was insane. And then the more I thought about
Hmm.
it, the more it sounded like it made some sense. and you've
Yeah.
seen kind of some of the, anyway, we can get into that, I think, maybe a little bit, not the whole time, but just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
It's its own discussion. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's we could talk for 3 hours on that one topic because it's oh, there's so much, and I've got a lot of interviews of people who are homeless. I mean, the documentary is the real
Yeah.
honeypot of that topic. But there are other interviews on on the periphery of homeless people that I've talked to, Vancouver, Seattle, and then others in the Twin Cities, and then more that I'm coming out with. See, when I was studying this topic on a more academic level, I traveled to Houston and Dallas to see how they were doing things.
Yeah.
And I interviewed a lot of people there. So I've got a lot of content, Paul, and
Okay. Well,
maybe you and I, maybe this is the beginning of a of restarting this project, which I've been working with a friend here on it too. But I've got a lot of content, a lot of interviews with people who are working they work in shelters and
yeah.
social services, so they give their 2 cents on the issue. So there's a real like frontline PBS special here,
Yeah.
style of piece we could create with a bunch of human interest stories along the way.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got, it's not like you're just picking from one area. You've got multiple
Mhm.
areas covered. So I think that, yeah, we'll have to dive into that and just kind of see what we can put together. And based on
Stay
what I
tuned.
just witnessed from firsthand
Stay
of how
tuned.
you interview, it's
Mhm.
there's a lot of good content there. So okay, well we'll double back on that next time and get a little more into it. But now I think to kind of wrap this up, I think we want to talk about one of your kind of videos from the back catalog, maybe watch it and discuss it as it's going. So why don't you kind of talk about the video we're going to watch?
Yeah, that's something else we'll do in these podcasts, and I
Yeah.
got to credit Paul for this too. You know, let's show a video that might be back there that hasn't gotten the attention that we might think it should enjoy. And I was thinking about how now, boy, just to talk about all the controversies in the world. Um, it's funny how we were keeping it light, and now it's going to get really heavy. But that's life, right? That's the life of a human interest storyteller. I mean, it could go either way so fast. But you know, last spring, George Floyd, the the fallout from that, the protests and riots and such. So I went to downtown, not downtown, but just south of downtown Minneapolis, where it was what I call ground zero. It's where the target, it's where the police precinct was stormed. And for one full day, I went down there and just I would end up making 3 videos on the topic. And this video that we're about to play is the first of 3 videos that I made. The first one is this guy. I just called him a street preacher, but you know, I don't know what else to call him. Because he was sort of preaching. It wasn't religious, it was social. He was just kind of preaching like, this is not, you know, what's going on. We can do better than this. He wasn't a fan. There were people congregated there because there was a line of National Guard troops, because now they had sealed the perimeter around where all these large fires had taken place. And so that where those National Guard troops were stationed around that area where there were people congregating and like giving them the peace of their mind. You know, there was a lot of
so
confrontation.
why don't we just get into it? Why don't we just,
Yeah, sure thing. So this
yeah.
guy is just giving a talk in front of the National Guard troops.
Okay, here we go. Let me cue this up. Here we go.
Okay.
It hurt my heart last night to watch what I saw last night. It hurts me to watch our youth tearing it up, throwing trash cans into glass, tearing it up. What is that solving? Right? I get the first, let's do this, whatever. Some people have different ways of applying pressure to get certain things done. But this right here, this ain't it.
Man, some of those images.
So now you ask yourself, where and when does it stop?
Hold on, let me pause it real quick. Let's pause real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the buildings were still smoldering. I mean,
Mhm.
I look like smoke is just like it's still. What did it smell like? I know that's a random question, but what did it smell like to be
Burnt
there?
rubber,
Yeah,
burnt rubber, right?
rubber.
We've smelled a tire burning,
Yeah.
or um, yeah, like a. This is the kind of fire where there's black smoke. It's the kind
Yeah.
of fire that's gonna like, it's like an environmentalist nightmare,
hmm
right? It's the kind of fire that you're like, oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's bad for everything.
hmm
Um, and you just have to, your jaw drops at the heat that there must
hmm
have been generated to melt. Like that one house, it
Yeah.
wasn't on fire, but its siding, all those plastic pieces of siding were all
hmm
melted. That that was like, it's like watching a wax figure start to melt.
Yeah.
It
Lose
was
its
such
shape.
deformity. Yeah. So you're like, and that house was, I don't know how far from the fire. I mean, many yards, maybe 50 feet, maybe,
Wow. Okay.
but it didn't matter. Like the heat from a burning building is intense. Um, this was, it was literally like a war zone.
Looks like it.
It looked like pictures from the Middle East when there's been a bombing,
hmm
right? It was black. It was pieces of metal destroyed, um, things that you couldn't just light on fire with a lighter
Yeah.
were toast, right? So,
Yeah.
and you could smell it. And there was a sprinkler shooting water out because one of the water lines in the building broke. So you
hmm
had to watch where you're stepping because it was a lot of water everywhere.
Damn.
Um, and yeah, it was still smoldering. There was still smoke
Wow.
coming up. Uh, and these fires were put out several hours before, the night before. So
Still going.
still
Okay.
going. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's. You ready to start back up?
Yep. Go ahead.
Let's do it.
That was a new house on the
Oh,
hill.
yeah. Wow. I mean, that's just wow.
Yep.
Just like these people are standing here in solidarity for them, we have to do the same thing. We have to lock heads. Listen, it's not enough for them to stop all us. Period. If we stood together in unity, in a peaceful demonstration, I think shit go a different way.
What
This
is
is
it?
several blocks away, but the rioting occurred over miles of the city.
Have you been back since? I mean, just kind of those specific kind of areas. It might be interesting to see what they look like now.
I walked into this school.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think I helped you out with this,
Ah,
some of this
yep,
footage.
that's right.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful, man. Dang, that was man. Yeah. So what would it take to? Well, okay. Two questions. What would it? Do you think it'd be possible to go in video, kind of just show what it looks like now, just a couple of those areas?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
no
at some
problem.
point in the future, I kind of just do a little follow up, just a little quick video, like maybe post it in this podcast or just somewhere, just like, okay, here's what it was that day, here's what it is now, 9 months, 2 months later, whatever it is,
Well,
7, 8.
just to talk shop here,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would say a year later.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would say let's plan this and then
But
do
you
like
know what I
1 year.
will say, and not to be disingenuous, but maybe you go there 11 months later before everybody else comes back for the year later. You know what I mean?
There was no shortage of,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see a lot of them, but there was a lot of content being put on YouTube and in the Facebook groups here locally of filmmakers. A lot of drone footage, which by the way
Yeah.
was remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the local PBS affiliate here was giving grants out to filmmakers to tell their 2020 story.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Okay,
it
yeah.
obviously featured a lot of this. There's also pandemic stuff in the election, but the focus, I think, for most of them was the reaction to George Floyd's death. And uh, another reason I bring it up now is because we're in the midst of the trial.
Mm.
And so what's interesting, Paul, is that, and I say interesting in a very removed, it's not that interesting. I mean, it's troubling
Uh-huh.
and scary, but you know, from like an academic standpoint, it's interesting. But in a year's time, I mean, who knows what it's going to look like? Because if people get upset about what happens,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that trial this morning. Like, it's been so built up that this is also where I think social media and the connectivity of everything
Uh-huh.
sort of interferes with the standard way we've done things. Like, how can the justice system actually try to do an impartial thing here when everyone knows about, like, they're having a heck of a time finding jurors.
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
I
know, and
don't
I'm not
like.
saying this to take the side of anything.
I know.
I'm just trying to speak objectively here about, like, how is this supposed to be done in an impartial way? I don't know if it's possible. I mean, and I don't think the community is gonna, they're not gonna respond well unless there's a guilty on all counts verdict. And
Yeah.
that might happen, but if it doesn't, I'm worried that Minneapolis, I have friends there. I mean, I'm actually gonna tell them they should probably leave
Well, I think,
uh,
I think
for a
so.
short while.
From it makes sense to maybe go down there before the trial wraps to get
That's
some footage,
true. So
to
maybe
get
this will
it.
be a 9-month later thing.
So we know, because if things go sideways, afterwards, then we're not going to really know what this moment looked like, what before round two happens, and also too, yeah. Well, you know what? We're going to revisit several of these topics we talked about today next time, and this will be one of them, because I wasn't even thinking about that. You're right there, and yeah, we definitely need to
The
talk about
video, the video that popped up in the
that. Yes.
recommend, you know how at the end of a YouTube video, another video come up, a suggested video. Well,
Mhm.
the one I have there is a podcaster named Brittany Schaefer,
Yeah.
and she interviewed me about what was going on in Minneapolis. She has
Okay.
her own podcast, and so I talk about it as it was happening
Mhm.
last year on her show. But we can certainly do the same thing here as the trial is now happening, not the aftermath of the incident.
Yeah, I mean, we've just kind of on this pod, we've had a few things we want to talk about, but we've kind of meandered or just let one thing lead us where it led us. But I think
Yeah,
that a few jumping off points, for the next one is, we can just kind of bullet point those, and then if something gets in between them or pushes them aside, then it does. But
it's pretty appropriate too, because I know this is where I want to hear what you think too, because
mhm,
you come at things from a little bit different political perspective, and you
yeah,
being African American yourself, so there's a lot of potential here for some,
yeah,
I think, great dialogue.
dialogue. Well,
Yeah,
how about this? How about we end it there? This has been fun. Our inaugural
that's right.
chat.
That's right.
But
History.
yeah, but hey, is there anything you want to do to kind of just sign off and tell your viewers, your listeners, viewers? Yeah.
Yeah, like, let us know what sorts of things you think about, maybe video suggestions you want us to do. The sort of the problem with this channel is that it's too broad, and I have a hard time, because I mean, I think about it. We started this conversation with, hey, I'm going to do a video about people fishing on docks around the country, to going back to the riot zone.
Hmm.
Now that is just worlds apart, right? The
Right.
only thing they have in common is that they're both in the country,
Hmm.
and that's all I really. And I don't even use that. I have videos from out of the country too,
Hmm.
but it's so broad. So I guess I'm interested in the numbers of viewers sort of indicate what people like most on the channel.
Hmm.
So there's that. But also, I like to hear suggestions. So if you're watching this and you have something to add, either about a topic we discussed or a suggestion for a video, I've had people reach out saying, hey, interview this guy. He's 104 years old. He's got this story, that story, and I'm all ears for that. I have another, a woman that this didn't work out, but she says, hey, I'm down in Cajun country. You should do a video about life here, because it's kind of a shrinking culture.
Just
but
so
it's
you
a
know,
real,
I'm not doing the subtitles on that one. That's all you, okay?
we'll see how good the AI is at
Oh my
retrieving
God.
the subtitles there.
Oh man,
Yeah, that would be funny.
yeah.
But there's that, right? So I love getting these suggestions, and so yeah, give us your 2 cents, and yeah, I would say just thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have feedback about the podcast itself, we're all ears about that too. You know,
Yeah.
we want this to be interesting for viewers, and Paul, I want this to be a lot of fun for us. There's a lot we can cover, which we obviously have in this first episode, and I guess I'll just say I look forward to doing so with future episodes.
Likewise, I mean, really, we've been doing podcasts and in chats for 10 years or
Yeah,
so. We
we
just
were doing
haven't been recording it.
podcasting, just didn't record it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, well, here we go. We're starting a new chapter. Okay. Well, Brandon, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Paul. See ya.
Yeah.